Hi, hello. My name is Anthony Rivera. I'm the co-founder here at Slam. Before I get started, wanted to ask a quick question. Anybody here ever wanted to be a professional athlete? I know I have. It played out differently, obviously, right? My dream was simple. I was going to be an NFL player, have touchdown records, told everybody that's what I was going to do. But detours, right? Dreams take detours. So instead of me having, the touchdown records that I thought I was going to have, I'm running late night mapping cap tables, helping my kids with homework. And yeah, sometimes, walk the dog maybe half the time. So what if I had this Slam platform? Things would have been different for me. But again, detours. Mine's led to be an entrepreneur, which I'm okay with that. Now I want to share a bit of a missing link about the Slam platform on how it answers the what if question. Think about that kid who's practicing late nights, no cameras, no crowd, no recognition, just him, right? He can't see his dream yet. He doesn't know how to get there. They put in the work, they sacrifice, but there's nowhere for them to see how to build this brick by brick. Less than 1% make it to professional levels. It's worse than, getting to, becoming a general. So some athletes get the opportunity to, be seen just by hard work, putting in the drive. But some athletes can do the same thing and never get that opportunity. Not because they were bad or they didn't have the drive, they just didn't have the platform to show them their capabilities. So I'm going to introduce a gentleman who's had, built it brick by brick, who's put in the work. He's an AP All-American. He's had a 10-year career in Europe. I'd like to introduce Billy Barron. Billy?
Thanks, Tony. Appreciate it. Morning, everyone. Hopefully everyone got a good night's sleep last night, got your coffee in you. But as Tony said, I played 10-year professional. And I used to spend my off seasons in Buffalo, New York. That's where my wife's from. And back in 2019, I was introduced to a trainer through a mutual friend of ours who some of you may know. Her name's Jessie Bagola. She's a top 5 tennis player in the world. And I was a stubborn person when it came to development. I sort of had my routines, my way of doing things, but I had just signed a contract to play in the EuroLeague, which was the top 16 teams in Europe. It was something that I had been striving to do. So I knew I needed extra help. So I took up Jessie on what she was recommending me to do, and I walked into this gym unassuming of what I was getting myself into. And the trainer looked at me and he saw a mess. He saw a misaligned pelvis. He saw limited flexion in key areas of my body that prohibited me from being more athletic. So after about an hour and a half of working with this trainer, I did my normal routine where I went back to the gym, got my normal workout in, my basketball workout. And it was different. I was moving better. I was jumping higher. I felt like I could work out for 3 hours. And so the next day I went right back to that trainer and I went up to him and I sort of got emotional. And I was just like, John, like I wish I met you 10, 15 years ago because you would have changed a lot for me. Because for me, it wasn't really a lack of effort. It was more so a lack of knowledge. I grew up in a basketball family. My father was a Division I coach, head coach for 30 years, and my brother and I both played for him. So basketball is really all me and my brother knew. We grew up in a small town in New York up until I was 11 years old. And so we fell in love with the game in our driveway. We also fell in love with the game in those locker rooms that my dad was coaching. So, the players that he was coaching quickly became me and my brother's idols. And they also became our targets as well. Me and my brother are pretty crazy individuals when it came to setting goals and then being persistent. And if you look at me and you look at the landscape of basketball, you could probably recognize I probably picked the wrong sport. Wasn't the fastest, wasn't the strongest, wasn't the most athletic. And I can probably say the same thing for my brother, even though he's not here. But we had this one thing that we just couldn't shake. It was this organic love for the game. And it was something that we were striving to chase, something that we couldn't see. And like I said, those players that my dad was coaching, they were our idols. They were our role models. And so me and my brother, because of that love and the relationship we had with the game of basketball, we sacrificed what a lot would say would be a normal childhood. Early mornings, late nights, constantly thinking every single day, how can you get better? That pass led me to a 10-year professional career. My brother played 11 years overseas. My last 5 years were in the EuroLeague, and I was regarded as one of the best shooters in Europe. Now being on the other side of my career and having this thing we call perspective and hindsight, I look back on my career with a very critical lens of understanding where could I have been better. Because yes, I had goals of playing a 10-year NBA career, and that's by working with that trainer at Buffalo. That's why I got emotional, is by understanding if I had a better knowledge of what I can do, understanding what I need to work on, but more importantly, how I need to work on it in the correct sequential order. This trainer that I worked with was a biomechanist, and he helped me understand how little things like knee flexion, pelvis fluidity was going to correlate to me shooting 45% from three and being regarded as one of the better shooters in the world. So, kids nowadays, they hear, get better, work harder, but what does that actually mean? How do you actually get better? The data is out there, but it's siloed and it's not built for the athlete. So fast forward around, was it last November around Thanksgiving, I'm at a basketball game and I'm sitting with a mutual friend of ours, an 80-ish year old Italian gentleman. And we're just sitting there watching the game and he goes, "Hey, Billy, I want you to meet a guy. He's got this AI technology, yada, yada, yada." And I'm like, all right, sure, I've heard that one before. So I met Robbie here and it shook his hand and he was telling me, all about Slam, what it can do. And when I tell you guys, I am the least tech person. Like, I never grew up thinking I would be sitting up here at a tech conference in Las Vegas talking to all of you guys, but here I am. Because once Robbie dove into the pillars of Slam, what it can do, how I could have used that in my career, and then with my father being a coach for 30 years, how he could use it in his career. My brother's now a coach with the San Antonio Spurs, understanding how he could use it, understanding how all the coaches that I played for in Europe could use the product that Robbie was building. So when he first told me about it, honestly, I was like, bullshit. Like, there's no way. Like, there's no way. Who is this guy? And I saw a demo and I started understanding what it can do. I met them at the MLB winter meetings in Orlando, and then I met him again in Miami. And I was bought in. I was fully bought in. Once I could wrap my head around how I could have utilized it, I was bought in. So without further ado, I want to introduce the guy that I call bullshit on, CEO of Slam, Robbie Luna.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. Excuse me. So for the past 17 years, I've spent my time as a co-founder and tech exec, building advanced analytic platforms and cybersecurity platforms for federal and regulatory agencies. Specifically, I'll draw your attention to one of our flagship customers, the Securities and Exchange Commission. Again, this firm that my partner Tony Rivera and I co-founded solely worked on the federal regulatory space. But at the Securities and Exchange Commission, their mission is to protect and the integrity of capital and equities markets. Right around the time the Bernie Madoff thing took place, they brought us in to build a platform that can help them identify fraud in a faster manner. Their examinations for market surveillance would take anywhere from 6 to 8 months when they suspected that something fishy was taking place in market. We developed this platform that was focused on ingesting and aggregating data from market participants, whether it's structured, unstructured. It was all siloed data. We would bring it into one central location and then develop rules, essentially, which were lines of code that would look for things like insider trading, money laundering, front running, you name it, we were looking for it. In 2017, 2017, we reduced that time of an examination from 6 to 8 months to about 6 to 8 weeks. In 2017, we started developing custom AI models for data normalization, right? So taking all of that data in and automating the normalization process in order to allow SEC examiners even more time or less time to conduct their examination. So right around 2019, what used to take 6 to 8 weeks was now taking anywhere from 1 to 2 weeks from an examination perspective. In 2021, we said, we've helped the SEC levy billions upon billions in fines, right? That's our quantifiable metric. why don't we invest heavily in research and development and develop an AI-driven enterprise search platform that we can call our own? 2024, we received a patent for this technology that was focused on sovereign search, right? So searching petabytes of data that that has some level of integrity because you trust the data that you brought into these data domains. And then we said, all right, what do we do with this now? Well, I said, well, why don't we focus on a passion project, right? We all love sports, right? I grew up in the Dominican Republic. I wanted to be a professional baseball player, shocker, but didn't make it, right? But I always had a love for the game. So in 2024, after we get this patent, we bought 10 years worth of NFL data, right? We lived, the company was based out of Washington, D.C. Our clients loved the game of football, but they were also sports bettors, right? And I'll preface this by saying we're not a sports betting company. We were just strictly trying to kind of predict, kind of set the stage for a thesis that we had that you can do anything with data, right? Regardless of vertical. So we bought this data and we developed a prototype of a prediction engine that would predict the outcome of NFL games in the 2024 season against the spread and the money line. So I'm telling you the story because it's fitting, right? We're in Vegas. That season against the money line, against the spread, we predicted the outcomes with 71% accuracy. Against the spread, against the money line, we were about 90% accurate, right? So 71% against the spread, 91% against the money line. We quickly abandoned that because we didn't want to be known as that. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I had a different purpose in mind, and that was 3 pillars, right? Player acquisition, self and opponent scouting, and player development. That's what the SLAM platform is, right? So that I just took you through the journey of the past 17 years. The last 4 months, this guy, he's obsessed, right, with everything he touches, he puts his hands on, and it's become a full-time job on me to prove that the platform wasn't, in fact, bullshit, right? It was actually grounded in truth. So we took him through that journey, and it's oddly enough, when we would go demo the platform to prospective clients, we were going with technologists, right? So I said, and we weren't getting the results we wanted. So I started drawing a parallel to what made us successful at the SEC, and it hit me right away, right? What made us successful at the Securities and Exchange Commission was not the technology, right? It was that the earliest part of that journey, and that was a requirements gathering process, where we sat down with SEC examiners, right? These are attorneys that were trained, they're super brilliant, right? Trained at some of the finest institutions in this country, and they did a data dump on us, right? For 2 months, right? What did that consist of? Well, the regs, right? The rules of the road for trading financial instruments, their day-to-day, right? Things that they look at in terms from a market surveillance perspective. And then we created digital representations of those workflows. Well, on the sports side, I said, we are not going to be successful unless we lead with athletes, right? At the time, we got a couple of former major league players that were kind of the brains behind, from a subject matter expertise perspective. They were the brains behind that vertical, baseball, right? When we started leading with the voice of the athlete, right, in this case, baseball, we started getting a lot of attention from NCAA D1 programs and a couple of MLB teams from a pilot perspective. When I brought Billy on and we developed the basketball version of the platform, we went from 2 demos a month to about, 40 a month?
Yeah.
No one says no, right? The only time someone says no is when we meet with the analytics teams. I call them the guards at the gate. They don't want our platform in their space, but when we meet with coaches, athletes, it's immediate buy-in, right? And case in point, one of our clients, University of North Carolina baseball, when we first met with them, we met with the analytics team. Throughout the course of the year, we started meeting with coaches and some of their athletes. And then they finally bought the platform 4 weeks ago. We onboarded them last week. They played the number 2 team in the country after a week of using the platform. and they had a 3-game series against Georgia Tech. They won the series two games to 1, right? One of the games they run ruled, right? Meaning the game didn't even go 9 innings because they were up by 14 runs in the 7th or 8th inning. We asked one of their GM, hey, did you use the platform? And they said, absolutely. I said, well, give me a metric. Like what was different this week in your preparation? Essentially what used to take, let's call it 25 to 30 hours of video analysis, we were able to condense that time down to, let's say, 2 to 3 hours of video analysis. So measurable return on investment. And this is a testament of the Slam platform, right? We part of that journey was really meeting with the coaching staff and creating a digital representation of we call them a mixture of experts, right? From head coach to pitching coach, hitting coach, biometrics, creating digital representations so that when we look at footage, whether it's text or video, we're looking at it from the lens of an expert. And it's been a great success thus far. And I finally got Billy's buy-in.
No, he did. And I think, given where we are in this time of the year, the lowest hanging fruit for us over the last couple of months is this transfer portal in the NCAA and understanding how much money is being spent. It's mind-blowing. And if you guys only knew the context that they were using to spend this type of money on signing a point guard they're going to spend $2 million, your jaw would drop. Because a lot of it is they're sort of going to Vegas and taking a gamble because there's not enough context to the decision. They're basing it off of 1 or 2 metrics, and that gives that player a value. But how exactly is that player going to fit in that system? How is that player going to fit a certain playbook? How is that player going to fit a certain role that they've never played before? So there's all these intricacies to it that you would think that when they go to their donors for $1 million every single year, the donors are going to want to know, well, where is this money going to and how are you going to spend it? And being able to show them Slam and to show how they're spending every single dollar to find to put together their next roster, to then also optimize their systems, to help them scout better, to help them develop their players better. We've gotten a lot of traction on that end. But understanding, being the son of a coach, my father is from Brooklyn, New York. When I say I'm not tech savvy at all, my father is, holy smokes. But showing him this platform, showing him how this could have optimized his workflow, his systems. Like I said, I sacrificed my childhood for this game. My dad sacrificed a lot for this game, a lot. And he was the guy, very old school, in the film room, all day, every day, watching how he could get better. And so being able to show these teams, like I said, for the transfer portal opens the day after the national championship. And one of our future clients just won the national championship. So they're having to go, turn around and put together their roster in the locker room with doused in champagne. So being able to help them optimize their systems during the year to be ready for once that transfer portal hits. That's where we've gained a lot of traction. So we're really stress testing workflows, optimizing those workflows, making them efficient, giving coaches their lives back, allowing coaches to focus on relationships, because there's a big thing there with forming those relationships, especially in college where it's sort of speed dating. You get these players for the most part for 9-10 months and then adios. So that's the traction. On the NBA side, obviously the sales process is a little bit different. They come a little bit more prepared, getting a little bit more finite, a little bit more detail with what we're delivering, the solution we're exactly offering, from, like Robbie said, a biomechanical lens, helping a shooting coach analyze 10,000 shots in the matter of 5 minutes and being able to pick up on certain trends. Okay, why did this knee flexion, why did this footwork result in this certain front rim miss, and being able to correlate that with results to pick up on trends and overall just giving an objective view to it. So we've gained a lot of traction. Robbie, I would ask you, since the time you started this to, being here, right now, what's been the biggest challenges for you, for Slam, for the entire team?
Well, we only got 5 minutes, right? It's challenge has been plentiful. I'll focus on the first 2, right? Is that product market fit, proving out the thesis, being able to aggregate. I'll draw your attention to one of our clients. They purchased maybe $4 or $5 million and sports tech equipment, and they have to go to each one of these platforms individually to extract some sort of value out of that data. And it ends up being on a spreadsheet with 26 tabs, and they're cherry picking what to feed their athletes or what to relay their athletes from a player development and self scouting perspective. Being able to go in and take all of that data, bring it into the Slam platform, and then allowing our clients to talk to that data using natural language. We're still trying to measure the success of that. But most importantly, there's fidelity in that process. But getting to that point was incredibly challenging because you have to evangelize the capability then build adoption. I think the second part, and this one's more personal, is we're not VC funded, right? We're self-funded. We've been incredibly successful in another platform, so we're funding ourselves. But we're about $5.5 million into this, so the VC discussions have been challenging, right? Because I think what's different about us is we're focusing more on the human aspects of sports, right? Meaning we lead with athletes, we lead with coaches and the voice of the athletes and the coaches, and prioritizing that instead of tech, because 4 or 5 years from now, this tech may be either obsolete or there's going to be something better, right? So, but the one constant is always going to be the athlete and the coach and their desire to win and put butts in seats of an arena, right? I think that hasn't changed. And then I have this love-hate relationship with AI. Being kind of an AI company, we have patents in the space. But I think AI there are dangers to AI where you got a guy who's a contract specialist one day, and then the next day they think they're an expert attorney, and then a biomech, and maybe ensuring that the information summarization that we provide to our clients is grounded in truth with citations every step of the way. That has been a challenge, but we've overcome it. All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a great day.